Welcome back to another look at sins Christians let women get away with. Kind of all the time. If you didn't watch the first video, you might want to go back and check it out. It'll make a little more sense out of what we're doing here. Otherwise, we're picking right back up where we left off with sins of lust. Christian women not exempt from this particular struggle, and smut is becoming a bit of an issue. I know I'm not the first person to point out that the church has been completely silent on this. I think it's a difficult thing for Christians to wrap their brain around, Christian men especially, because we tend to think that women don't deal with lust, at least not in the same way. It's like, yeah, but that stuff is pretty graphic, like physically graphic. We tend to think women don't have a strong sex drive like men do, and that women aren't actually getting lustfully aroused. But most of the evidence we're seeing suggests it's not that they don't get aroused, it's that men care about the quantity while women care more about the quality. Women want a higher quality encounter. They want a higher quality man, and they can't really get aroused for lower quality. I know that's kind of a hard pill for guys to swallow because it has some humbling implications for men about why their own wives aren't excited about them. But again, just look at how popular and how physically graphic the smut is.
It's graphic, and it does affect a woman's perception of the men around her in the same way that pornography affects the perception of men to the women around them.
And it's contributing to those astronomical standards that women have for the men. For women, they have to feel a spark of attraction with a man in order to consider him a viable option to date or marry. They just have to. And this is one more thing that makes it so that women can't feel that spark with an average man. And it's one of the reasons why guys can't get dates anymore.
It's because in the smut, it's usually an extraordinary man with extraordinary qualities.
Who's a lot of times not even human.
Yeah, half the time it's literally a beast.
Looks like a half donkey man or something.
He's the biggest, baddest, scariest, most dangerous creature in all the realms.
Yes.
The average man is not the biggest bad. It's not the
right.
scary.
And so she can't feel the feelings that the book makes her feel. And so she translates that to, oh no, this isn't the sign from the Holy Spirit that he's the one. So she just can't, she can't spiritually get it up.
She can't, that's where I was going with that too. I was like, should I say it or should he say it?
Yeah. And she has to, otherwise the relationship's not going to happen.
No.
Or if she is in a relationship, it could put that relationship in danger. Most women today need to feel that spark, it seems. Otherwise, they just don't feel like the relationship is worth being in anymore. And once they lose that feeling, they start looking for ways to sabotage their relationship or marriage even and get out of it. One pastor's wife at a church I used to go to told this story where she met a man once that she found way more attractive than her husband, and she then started daydreaming that her husband would die so that she could be with this man. The story goes that she caught herself doing that and repented of it, but a lot of women don't, and that's where the sabotage starts, and they start nagging and demeaning and pushing their husbands to snap at them so that they can justify getting out and going to look for a man who does make them feel that spark again. So when a wife is reading smut or scrolling or whatever, consuming content that stirs up lust like that, it makes that process happen where they lose their spark, that spark for the guy they're with, even faster.
In a lot of those smut books, it's the lust to be lusted after that gets them going.
Yeah.
Another aspect of it too is that she longs to be lusted after, provided that the guy that is lusting after her is attractive to her. Otherwise, if he's not attractive to her, then she's a victim of his gaze. If he was like what you think a Redditor looks like, they'd put that book down so fast.
And then you have a bunch of women who are profiting by causing other people to lust after them, by displaying their bodies online for money or for the attention of attractive high-level men or whatever it is through Instagram. Or here's a fun stat: roughly 10% of women from 18 to 24 are on OF. And a shocking number of them claim to be church attending Christians. I guess nobody at those churches cares enough to call them out on it. I mean, I've heard stories of pastors being subscribed to those girls. And so who knows what's going on there? Maybe those ladies have some blackmail. I don't know. But it doesn't stop there. There's also this pattern. It's like these girls are using the church as a part of their strategy in this, where they sell their bodies when they're young, but once that stops working because, they get too old for it and they can't get the attention from high-level men anymore, or they don't get the money they used to, whatever it is, and they know they can come back to church, get that past wiped away and the consequences along with it, or at least that's what they're hoping.
That's what they're hoping.
Because they know before they start that they can just come back and say, oh, well, I'm repenting now, and so I'm justified, so it's just as if I'd never sinned, right? So then when OF doesn't take care of them, Instagram doesn't take care of them anymore, they can come to church and get, that stable goody two-shoes Christian guy who was on the straight and narrow his whole life to settle down with her and take care of her. And so she just has no consequences for any of what she did. And she knows there'll be a lot of Christian white knight men who will support her in that and, be rallying the guys to, come on, step up and marry the hoe. So they know they can come back and get all of not just the guilt of sin, but the earthly consequences wiped away. And it seems there are many who go into that life of sin knowing that they're going to do that. And at that point, they're sinning three ways. They're sinning because, to your point, they get turned on when other people lust for them. They're also sinning by causing those other people to lust. And they're taking advantage of God's grace. They're sinning willfully, knowing about God's grace, which is something that it actually says in Scripture, in Hebrews, I think, where it says that behavior is profaning the blood of Christ. And it'll actually be worse for those people than if they had never believed at all. So they're sinning in three different ways, and they know that nobody at church is going to call them out on it because nobody wants to sound like they're belittling God's grace. And yeah, it looks like grace, but by taking away the consequences, we're making it comfortable for them to sin, right? There's no friction anywhere. There's nothing to deter her from doing it. There is still consequences just getting pushed onto those men that she's expecting to take care of her when she settles down. But we're so callous towards men today that we just don't care how her sin affects him. So we don't do anything about it on the front end or the back end. And that makes it really easy for these women to choose to sin, right? That's where this sort of all rebuke for men and all grace for women type of gender bias is coming back to haunt us now, because the guys look at that and they're starting to see that pattern and go, no, I'm not putting up with that. I'm sorry, Michael Knowles, I'm not gonna marry the hoe. We can't figure out why, but we won't go back to the source and deal with the sin that's driving these men away. But then you also see these girls using another strategy to get what they want. You see this pattern where they repent, supposedly, but then they'll turn around and become a Christian influencer right away. And nobody questions it. The trouble is, she's still getting the thing that she sinfully wanted, which is the attention and the affirmation and praise and all that. And a lot of times money too. Christians think that the problem with OF is the sex part of it. And well, as long as she's repented of the sex part, she's off OF, well, now she's totally reformed. So yes, absolutely, let's use her testimony and put her right up on front and center for everyone to see. When the reality is, it wasn't the sex that she wanted. She could have sex off camera anytime she wanted with any man she wanted. That's not what was driving her. The reason she was on there was for the attention. And what is she still getting if she's a Christian influencer? Attention.
Yeah.
Lots of it. It's such a strong pattern at this point that guys are right to question it.
We have a saying for you. OnlyFans detected, opinion rejected.
And we are not wise if we put these women up there as sort of role models for the church. They need to spend years offline.
Let's put it this way. If a man converted from Christianity, but that man was formerly a pimp, no one who runs a biblically sound church would look at him and say, now we're just going to make you an elder because you changed overnight. It's like, right. No, that's not how that works. He needs to develop the maturity before he can take on such a responsibility.
Go to seminary first, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing for women. But again, we live in a time where we shield women from consequences so intensely that when you try to hold women to that same standard, suddenly you're a misogynist.
Yeah, it's anytime you want to know if the way you're treating the situation is the right thing to do, flip the gender around and see if you would still do it that way. I mean, yes, of course, men and women are different and you wouldn't do everything the same, but if it's a bad idea for a man, you at least need to explain why it would be a good idea for a woman. And if you can't, then you probably shouldn't have women doing whatever it is. And in this case, putting a OF girl up as a Christian influencer is a bit like putting an alcoholic in a room full of full bottles. It's going to be incredibly difficult for her to stay away from that urge to sin. Next up, selfishness. Selfishness is one of the most destructive sins because it's the opposite of love. Hate is not the opposite of love. I've heard some people say that apathy is the opposite of love. I actually disagree with that. Selfishness is the opposite of love because love is pouring out for another person. It's seeking the best thing that you can for someone else, even at your own expense. The direction is outward. Selfishness is just a reversal of the flow. It's about me. I will sacrifice other people for my benefit. Some ways that women tend to be selfish, manipulating and exploiting people.
Yeah.
And a big way that you pointed out that women manipulate is through things like negative punishments.
Positive punishment is enacting a negative stimulus to curb a behavior, whereas negative punishment is taking away something good and then only giving them the good thing again once they do exactly what you want. Sometimes a woman will withhold affection, attention, or sex from her husband. That's a form of negative punishment because she's taking away something in order to get him to do what she wants. Then she'll give it back. Maybe. It might be a slot machine in that case. It might be a gamble for him. Like, maybe if I do it this time, I'll get it, which is terrible. Another form of it is like shame, using a lot of shame, using a lot of guilt.
Very effective on men. We have a high desire for approval, and shame is basically the opposite of approval. So when women take away their approval from us and they shame us instead, it feels like the end of the world to us. It's awful. So it's incredibly effective. Making her problems everyone else's problem.
Gosh, yeah. Kind of
like dumping her stress onto other people and just, announcing to everyone around her how bad she feels in that particular moment, how sad she is. In that same way that crying creates a tension in other people that she knows someone else is going to want to resolve, she will dump stress, sadness, or desires for things on other people in hopes that that will create a tension they'll want to resolve by fixing it for her. That's a pretty manipulative behavior.
Yeah, one of the big ways too that I've seen when mom's having a bad day, everyone in the house is having a bad day. It's kind of that thing, right? Where her emotional regulation becomes their responsibility.
Yeah.
That's another big selfish thing that I see. Yeah.
Women will make it everyone else's job to regulate her emotions for her.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me stuff like, hey, you shouldn't be saying stuff like that, because that doesn't make people feel very good. Or, you watch out with your tone and the way that you talk about that. It's just like, hold up a second. I was telling the truth.
I used to do that.
Yeah, and why are your emotions a bigger issue than the truth? You want me to either say it differently in a way that actually doesn't communicate the truth anymore, or not say it at all in order to regulate your emotions for you.
Yeah.
It's not actually my job to take care of your emotions and fix your emotional state for you. It's my job to tell the truth. A lot of the problems that we have in our culture today are because we've gotten that flipped around. It's expected that you must regulate the other person's emotions for them, especially if it's a woman. And that has to come at the cost of truth.
Well, when we were first dating, that was a struggle that we had for a little bit, where I would try to construe that, like, I don't like the way that you put that. And then you would have to explain to me, like, okay, listen, I get it, but at the same time, it's what you need to hear. And I can't be sugarcoating everything to make you feel better, right?
Yeah.
And for a long time, I didn't understand that, because for the longest time, all that I had heard as a woman was they need to be careful with the way that they talk to you. Because that's what women are told. We're told to do that with other women. You need to be careful with your tone. You need to watch your language. You need to effectively walk on eggshells. I think what ended up happening was throughout our dating relationship, I started to understand that, yes, he's absolutely right, that the truth needs to come first. And then once we got married, then we discussed a way for us to communicate truth to each other in a way that had maybe some decorum, right? But was still not sugarcoating everything or forcing you to walk on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
Because like in our case, all that I needed to hear from you was for you to say, I understand where you're coming from and I'm not downplaying that, but this is the truth.
Yeah, this is the part that matters.
Yeah, this is the part that matters. And I think once we got that out of the way, it was fine. But the problem is that for a lot of people, it doesn't even come down to, I just need to hear that you understand where I'm coming from. It comes down to, no, I need you to agree with me.
Yeah. I need you to not tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
A bit. Yeah. That's one of the things that we've sort of forced men to do is we've forced men to adapt to women and the way that women interact and relate and adapt to their emotions instead of telling women, no, you need to adapt to the man's logic. Because one of those things is a little bit closer to objective reality and truth than the other. Since we flipped that around, it's been kind of a disaster. Emotions have their place and they have their use. They're great as motivators. They're excellent servants. They're terrible masters. And we flipped this around because what do we say? Men, if the woman is upset, don't offer her your solutions. Don't offer her any logic or any of that. Withhold that stuff and just tell her that you understand her because that's what she wants. But what gets lost is that no, his solutions and his logic are closer to the truth. She does not need her feelings to be validated. She needs to be brought back to earth. She needs to be brought back to reality. And we've stopped doing that. And yeah, it just hasn't worked.
There's no more meeting in the middle anymore. It's all just validate her feelings.
Just validate it, yeah.
Just do that.
Your solutions make her upset, and because her feelings are always correct in our culture, your solutions are wrong. It's the assumption that whatever a woman... Well, yeah, we have this assumption now that whatever a woman feels is correct. Therefore, if a woman gets upset when a man offers his solutions are wrong because they upset the woman. Therefore, he must not offer them. We're optimizing for short-term approval of women instead of optimizing for long-term health. And you mentioned middle ground. One of the things that has actually helped us the most isn't necessarily me offering solutions. It's just helping you defuse from your feelings.
Yeah.
That has been something that has changed your mental health completely since we got married. When you're feeling like upset or you're feeling bad about yourself or whatever it is, instead of me being this like, hey, I see you and I hear you, and I just want to validate you as a person right now. What I do is I go, okay, let's understand why you're feeling that. Yeah. And instead of like treating it like her feelings are her and they're the realest thing, which is what she feels, I try to get her out of it and say, no, let's try to separate you from the feeling. Because you don't have to agree with your feelings. They're not always right. Sometimes it's better to just treat them like they're a separate character in your brain and go, hey, sorry, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to help me. I appreciate it, but you're not needed right now.
Yeah, even books that are like not necessarily oriented toward that, like the confidence gap, those books talk a lot about separating yourself from your emotions so that you can think more clearly. And I think that is a skill that is absolutely necessary for women to learn if they're going to function well, and if they're even going to recognize half of these sins that they're committing, right? Is for them to separate themselves from their feelings and be like, okay, it feels real. And to be fair, it is real because your body is going through something very visceral and emotions are not easy to deal with.
Yeah, your body is doing a thing.
Yeah. However, that does not mean that what you are feeling is reality. Yeah. Those are two completely separate things.
Well, it's not the reality outside of you.
Yeah.
It's the reality inside of you. It's not what's actually out there.
Yeah. It's an indicator that something's going on, but that's it. It's like a check engine light.
Another thing women do, using hormones or tiredness as an excuse for things, especially when preggo.
One of the things I heard a lot, especially on like Reddit, was, oopsies, that was just my pregnancy rage. You know how hormones are.
Yeah. It's almost like hormones are similar to what alcohol does to your system. It reveals what's going on underneath. If there's this deep resentment that you have towards your husband that you've been holding at bay or forcing yourself to ignore, once those hormones hit, all of that resentment is going to come flying out of you. You are not going to have any defense against it anymore. So
At least you're gonna feel like you don't.
you're going to feel like you
have a lot
don't.
more self-control than that. You just don't want to use it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere. No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
It was already in there.
Yeah.
You just didn't have any strength or ability to hold it back anymore.
Yeah.
So hormones kind of amplify what's underneath. They don't necessarily cause it. So they're not really a real excuse, it sounds
No,
like.
they're not. Like, you can't downplay how hard pregnancy and menopause and periods and stuff like that are. I'm
It's
not
hard.
trying to downplay that. My first trimester was like one of the hardest things I've ever been through. But that would not have, none of the pain or the aches I went through would have given me the freedom to treat him with disrespect.
And she never did, by the way. Like, that's
I
just,
did a lot of crying
well, yeah.
because I was sickies.
Yeah, you were not feeling super great.
To be perfectly fair, there were times where I was tempted. There were times where I did have that pregnancy rage, but I had to sit there and be like, first of all, this is not in any way, shape, or form justified. And secondly, even if it was, no.
Next genre of sin, feeding your sinful flesh. Or self-indulgence, another way to put it. One of the things that you brought up was this sort of indulging in drama, whether it's celebrity drama, TikTok drama, or like all the drama that happens between YouTubers and streamers, or Reddit drama, am I the a-hole drama. All of that stuff is, for some reason, delicious to women, and they will feed their flesh with that drama constantly.
And the danger that comes from that is it will affect her perception of reality. It's very similar to the smut. She will start to see the world through the lens of everything that she had just read or just heard. I used to listen to a lot of Am I the A-hole content, and there would be times where I'd listen to, especially the ones where like the wives would get mad at their husbands, and then I'd start noticing things that he was doing that were very similar to the stories, and I was like, he's not actually doing that. He's not actually doing that. My brain just thinks that he is because I'm indulging in this content. It's the same thing with true crime. I would start to get paranoid going outside and think that every person that I walked by, especially men, were out to get me because I kept listening to true crime stories about women being attacked by random men. So it did start to affect my perception on things.
Yeah, and that's why it's super important to teach women how to notice their thoughts and their feelings. They won't notice that whole feeling train, because it's not always a conscious thought train, it's a feeling train. They won't notice it, it's just happening down here. They don't catch it because they're not looking for it, because no one ever tells them that they should. So they end up then taking it out on their husband or on the guys around them or on the girls around them, because that's what feels right for her to do. And it all started with this stuff that she was indulging in, these stories that she's indulging in that aren't real life.
And then if you call her out on it, she'll say that you're gaslighting her.
Yeah, because it feels real to her. And feelings are the most real thing to her, and no one ever calls women out for making their feelings the most real thing in life. Another thing that women will indulge in, and I'm kind of talking about this already, but things like food, entertainment, media, like social media, and binging those things, binging Netflix, and just having no sense of self-control.
No sense of moderation either.
No moderation.
Yeah. The biggest one I've heard, I'm tired from work.
Yep.
I deserve to sit down and watch Netflix all day and rot my brain on blue screen, you know?
Yeah,
Like stuff
or
like that.
scroll on my phone.
Scroll, yeah.
Yeah, they'll give in to their cravings, and then they get mad at anyone who tells them not to. And then we rewind, go back to the punishment section, right? But then they'll end up either physically or spiritually or emotionally overweight and unhealthy. And they get sad about that. But then instead of actually looking at it and going, man, I messed up, my choices got me here, they try to change everyone around them to approve of their fatness. They say, no, this is just how I am, this is who I am, and you need to approve of it or you're a bad person. Bless you. There are more overweight women today than there are overweight men, and social media measurably disaffects women more than it does men. So it's like women are surrounded by all these opportunities to indulge their flesh in those ways, and they have low levels of responsibility or immediate consequences to keep them from those indulgences. And nobody's talking to them or calling them out on it because they demand that everyone affirm all of their choices. So they just give into those particular things, seems like quite a bit more than men do. And nobody cares. Nobody thinks it's a big deal, even though it's harming these women. Another thing along with that, being self-absorbed on their phone all the time, that sort of goes along with this.
Tilly called it the pocket mirror in My Dear Hemlock.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that the head demon was telling like her apprentice demon was keep her obsessed with that thing. Don't let her focus outwardly and selflessly for other people. Make her self-absorbed with a pocket mirror. Get her into another dimension. Because that's what it feels like when you're on your phone.
Yeah, you just, a whole day slips away and you're like, man, I could have done so much today and it's just gone. The devil loves that.
Yeah.
That he loves every second that we spend absorbed in ourself, in our own little universe, instead of positively impacting the people around us. Another thing women indulge in, sexual sin. Yeah, just sleeping around. Most of the single Christian men that I've met over the years have been virgins. Most of the single Christian women I've met have not, especially when I was dating. Women have more access to sex than men do, and they don't seem to resist that urge all that often when they have it. And this is a bit of an odd one because you do hear some pastors calling out young adults for sleeping with their boyfriend or girlfriend, but they do it in a way that's like they're assuming that it's an equal amount on both sides, when the reality is, no, it's a small number of men sleeping with a large number of women. And that matters because if you don't treat it how it actually is, then your rebukes won't land. And it'll often end up frustrating a lot of those guys who are just sort of on the outside of that and they're going, wait a minute, these guys here that have girlfriends to sleep with? I don't.
Yeah.
Like, wait, why are you coming down on me?
Yeah,
That doesn't make sense.
I was gonna say it must be super frustrating for the single guys who are waiting for marriage to be lumped in the category of, oh, you're just another player who's taking advantage of these poor girls. And he's like, I haven't slept with a person in my life and I intend to keep it that way until I get married. What do you mean?
Yeah, whenever you take a situation where there is an imbalance of perpetration and you act as if it's fair because you think you're being fair and impartial and all that, you're not. You're actually being unjust because you're minimizing the greater sin and you're elevating the lesser amount of sin. That is not fairness, that is not justice, and that will not solve the problem. That type of stuff matters more than we think. Pride, our favorite genre of sin.
Was the one that started it all, I think.
Trying to become famous on social media or streaming or get attention or get likes and retweets and all of that stuff on social media. Women want to be worshipped and praised like a goddess. Queen. Yeah. That's our word for goddess today.
Well, but to be fair, some women do call each other goddesses. We do that.
They do. And that's not an accident. That is what women want, and that's something that we oblige them in constantly. We shower them with all kinds of unearned and undeserved praise because it makes us feel good as men and as a society, and it seems to make her happy and make her feel good, and so it seems like it's a good thing. The reality is we're teaching her to place herself on God's throne in her own mind. And yeah, it's something that we need to pay a little bit more attention to inside the church because there's a lot of Christian women who are doing that exact thing. Power seeking. Now, I have a theory about where this comes from, so follow me for a second. It's partly that pride that women want to be worshipped like goddesses, but this is also the other side of that survival instinct that women have that makes them seek out the community. Since women don't have the strength to take on dangers head on like men can, they use options as a way to minimize risks and mitigate danger. Women instinctively want to maximize options for themselves and limit options for other people. In her instincts, that feels like it'll give her the highest chance of survival. It's the most control. Where she can go, what she can do, the kind of friends she can have, the kind of men she can have, and all of that. She wants to keep those options open because then she can potentially move those people between her and danger or extract resources from them, or that can keep an avenue of escape open.
Yeah, if pride is a problem that a woman has, her autonomy is the number one thing. You cannot challenge her autonomy.
Yeah, without her ripping your head off. Options and control feel good for a woman. Restrictions feel like death. And that whole ethic has come to dominate our culture today. I mean, just think about how the notion of placing a restriction on a woman in particular is seen as just an absolute evil and injustice.
You talked about this in the last video, how pastors feel the need to caveat that a wife submitting to her husband is empowering. If we didn't have that narrative from feminism that power equals worth, they would have no reason to say that. There'd be
none whatsoever.
Right?
Yeah, it would make no sense at all in that context. It would be counterproductive, and they would see that. The only reason they're saying stuff like that is to appease the feminist power is worth premise, and they don't want to sound like they're devaluing women. We've been bowing to this part of a woman's survival instinct by taking away just about every restriction that you could place on a woman for about the last 80 years now, and it's been an absolute disaster. It turns out humans need restrictions in order to flourish. We didn't take away restrictions from men, we added more to them. It's a survival instinct, but we're going to classify this one as pride because once you start using those options and manipulating the world to serve you, that is pride. You're making everything about you. The whole world is orbiting around you at that point. That is pride. It's this whole I matter, you don't. So I'm going to maximize my options and limit yours for my sake.
Another word to describe like restrictions is sacrifice. The concept of sacrifice doesn't exist today. And even if it does, it's not considered
For
a
men,
good thing.
well, for men it does.
For men it does.
Men,
Yeah.
men are required to sacrifice. For a woman, having to sacrifice something is considered an evil.
It's considered evil. That's why you get so many women who think that having children is inherently a curse.
Yeah, because it's a sacrifice and it adds restrictions.
It adds restrictions, or refusing to be that God-given helper.
That scripture says she was created to be. We've kind of flipped it around. We have this big narrative about husbands being servant leaders. We've made it so that women expect men to be their servant. They do not expect that they will have to serve their husband in any way or actually be a helper. You see this with women sort of making demands that he do his fair share around the house of like chores and things like that after he gets home from a long day of work to keep the lights on and keep the bills paid. That doesn't actually make it fair, right? Because she, in most cases, already does far less than he does. There was a study, I think it was the University of Michigan, because feminists were insisting that, well, if you add up unpaid labor, women do more actual work than men do over the course of a week. What they found was that if you include unpaid labor, women work about 56 hours per week. Men work about 61 hours per week. So even if you add it up that way, it doesn't work out that women do more. So when he gets home from his long, tiring day at work and she's demanding that he do this and that and the other thing, to her, she thinks that's fairness because she does not perceive any of what happened to him at work. That's not a part of her reality.
Even if she works herself, a lot of the time they don't perceive that. They think that their feelings of tiredness, like they supersede his.
Right. Her feelings are the ones that have been validated her whole life. Those are the real ones. What she did was the only real thing that happened that day. So in her mind, he needs to pull his weight and do more around here. That is not fair.
Especially if she's a housewife.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Usurping authority with emotional, social, or sexual leverage. We've talked about this quite a bit on this channel. Many women will enthusiastically affirm that their husband is the head of the household and the leader, but whenever he tries to actually make a decision that she doesn't like, she will make sure that it costs him enough that he will change his mind. She will, like negative punishments, like you were talking about earlier, she'll take things away from him. She will start to cut him down and shame him. It won't ever be big enough stuff for stuff that's egregious enough that anyone else would look at it and go, oh, wow, that's horrible that she did that. She needs to repent. Most women know where the line is of what they can get away with. The line to where a man will go, you know, I don't like that she's doing this, but I don't want to make a big fuss about this, right? I don't want to drag her to church for church discipline over this. This doesn't seem big enough. Women know exactly where that line is. But again, look at what she wants and look at what happens. Subtract everything in the middle. She wanted a thing that was not what he had decided was best, and she ended up getting her way. Now look at all the stuff she did in the middle. That is usurping authority.
And it's doubly disrespectful when what she wanted goes and then it ends up going horribly. And then she turns around and says, well, he said that it was okay, so it wasn't my fault.
He was the one who actually made the call. He made the decision. He's the head of the household. Head of household in even what we'd call conservative or complementarian houses today isn't actually anything more than a responsibility or consequence bucket.
Yeah.
The man only gets to make decisions if the woman already agrees with them. If she doesn't, she gets her way, but the man is the one who takes the consequences if what she wanted turns out to be the wrong thing.
Which is also not fair.
They get to have control. They get to look good to the community because they say that they respect their husband and that he's the head of the household. And they get to have the consequences deflected from them. Last up, delusional standards. Delulu girls. Yeah, this one kind of speaks for itself, but y'all want to know why guys can't get dates today. Pride.
That's why.
I like how Dr. K put it. If you look at all the men today who are grandparents, half of them would be single and childless if they had to try to date in the post-Tinder world. Men who used to be normal are nowhere near good enough now. A woman's pride is one of the biggest reasons why guys can't find a wife in church anymore. And it's also why a lot of the women that they could get don't make good wives. Guys are looking at that going, yeah, we see that you don't hold women accountable for any of this stuff that we talked about in this video. And they go, yeah, that is not a safe woman to be with. That is not a productive wife to have. That is not helpful. That is not a reward for the effort that it takes. No. That's a punishment. And they're saying no. You know, it's the whole overweight Christian woman wants a man who makes $5 million a year, believes her faith is what makes her deserve it. Christian women are just as delusional as secular women about this stuff.
I've seen this play out on social media where women adamantly deny that they're hypergamous. They'll hear like manosphere stuff and they'll be like, oh, that's such a lie that we want just the top 1% of men. We want men like this. Insert like a video of like a pretty attractive, goofy guy acting like a dork, right? Yeah. And all the women in the comments will be like, see, we don't want the top 1%. We want a guy like this, right? Then all of a sudden, the guy like this hops into their DMs and is like, hey, what's up? And they're like, ew.
Yeah, that is also probably, again, reputation preservation. Women don't want people to know that they're hypergamous because they know that that's not a pro-social behavior.
No.
So women don't want anyone to believe that to be true about them, even though once they actually go to make the decision, it's gut level hypergamous instinct making the call every time.
Honey, if he's putting himself on social media, he is probably part of that top 1 to 2%.
Well, if he's getting traction on
traction on social media, yeah.
If he wasn't part of that 1 to 2%, you would not have come across his reel.
Yeah.
It would have gotten 3 likes and then shut down by the algorithm. We blame it on the guys, but the reality is they're not the ones with the unreasonably high bar. And that bar is so high because of how highly those women view themselves. That's pride.
Yeah.
Disrespect. This one's a huge one. When we talk about the verses in the Bible where women are repeatedly told, wives, respect your husbands and submit to him, we spend most of our time explaining what those verses don't mean. In order to appease that feminist power premise, we don't explain what those verses look like in real life or what it looks like for a woman to sin in disobedience of those verses. So let's do that right now.
Yeah. So the first one's being demanding.
Yeah. There's all sorts of overt ways that a woman might do this, like demanding his attention while he's working on a project or he's trying to find some of that peace that guys are always in search of. Or it might be more subtle stuff like she's just keeps asking for the same thing over and over again. Even if he said, no, that's not a good idea, or no, we can't afford that, or whatever. You know, she keeps bringing up like, hey, we need to go on vacation in this particular place, or we need to get a house in this area or whatever, with no regard to how much much effort or sacrifice he has to make or what the ramifications are, she just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing for it. And she just will not take no for an answer. Like, she's not respecting his no. You know, she's not respecting his leadership in general.
A lack of empathy for their husband as well. Are you kidding me? You're tired?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or stop being such a baby. It's just a cold.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big one that I see a lot of women making fun of, and I'm like, come on.
Even though testosterone is an immunosuppressant and men actually do get sick worse than women, that's a whole other conversation. One of the biggest forms of disrespecting his effort. I don't spend money very often. I'm a very frugal person. A lot of that is because I have visceral PTSD. Like, whenever my wallet comes out, I have flashbacks to all the work that I had to do to get that money. I know that if I buy this thing and I end up not needing it, that wasn't just money that I wasted. That was blood, sweat, and tears. That was me having to be out in the cold and the rain or the scorching heat or the stench of the trash compactor where I used to work. And I have to go back to that place to go make that money back. Women don't have that. They don't have as much responsibility to provide. And so they don't have that sense of like, man, I worked really hard for this money. I should probably conserve it. I've watched so many wives be just totally flippant with the money that their husband brings home. That is the ultimate selfish disrespect towards their husband's effort, his sacrifice, the thistles and thorns he had to push through.
Especially when she goes behind his back
to
do stuff like that. He finds out. Cue the tears, because she's just like, I deserve something nice.
Well, yeah.
Nothing but the best for your beautiful wife.
Yeah, again, and that's one of the things that I appreciate is like, there are times where like you'll see something like, oh, we should get this, but you always ask me first.
Yeah, I always
like,
ask him first.
Yeah, you like, I know I've seen so many women who it's an Amazon package a day. They always have to have something coming in, or they just don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel happy or secure or whatever it is. And a large part of it is they just don't connect the dots between the money that they're spending and the pain that man went through to get her that money. It's discouraging as a man to watch a woman throw away your time and effort, because that's what it feels like. It feels like she's taking all of your struggle and effort and stress and all that stuff you went through and just poof, saying, it's like saying, I don't care that you had to do all of that. And they'll buy it. It'll be dumb stuff, right? Or stuff that's just like, I want this to make my life a little bit easier.
Bobo.
I think it's cute or it's fun or whatever, you know? And for guys, it's just like, really? You think that little of the effort that I put in to get that? It feels terrible. And along with that, it's just ingratitude.
Yeah.
Tilly, in that book, again, points out that women often won't acknowledge, you know, the one good thing they see a man doing, because to them it feels like they'd be validating or signing off on the dozen other things that they don't like about him or his behavior. So they wait around for the man to be perfect before they'll say thank you or give gratitude.
This one grinds my gears the most. A lot of women are told by other women to never say thank you to their husbands for doing things that they're expected to do.
Because it's the bare minimum.
Justification for that is he's doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest with you. I do not understand that logic.
Another huge form of disrespect, never apologizing when she's clearly wrong. Like, unless we want to say that women are perfect, which is theologically suspect, there are times women should show remorse and apologize. Or sometimes women just refuse to even admit that they messed up. The Psych Hacks guy talks about this, Dr. Orion Taraban. He theorizes that this is because men and women see the problem differently. Men see the harmful or damaging behavior as the problem, and the solution in his mind is for her to confess it, right? Admit she was wrong and change the behavior. In our language, that'd be repent.
Repentance.
Women do not see the behavior as the problem. They see the man's emotional response to her behavior as the problem. So in her mind, if she can fix his emotions, the problem will go away. That's why women will either attack the man and try to switch his emotions from upset to, you know, feeling guilty or defensive, or she'll offer appeasements like sex or cooking his favorite meal to make him feel good. You know, she's trying to change his emotional state instead of acknowledging that she messed up, apologizing, and changing the behavior going forward, which is, you know, what repentance actually is. That fits with the whole like reputation preservation idea, because If she were to admit that she was wrong, that would stain her reputation. That would make her look bad. Apologizing would mean admitting that she might be a harm to the community. That could put her in danger. So by treating the other person's emotions as the problem, it allows her to get away with the bad behavior without compromising her image. Along with this one is deflection. This is a huge one. It's like, yeah, but men. We hear this one all the time. You confront a woman about her sin and she'll say, yeah, but he did this. Or
Men do it too.
Men do that too, or men are worse because of this thing over here. I guarantee there's a bunch of people watching this who are seething at their TV right now.
Oh yeah. And they're probably writing a comment right now where they're like, men do this too.
Yeah, men do that stuff. Men do worse stuff than this at every point that we make along this. We said at the beginning, we're not going to give into that deflection because that's what that is. Responses like that, the yeah, but men, are exactly the reason why we don't hold women accountable. We're constantly taking the attention away from women and putting it back over on men. We want to imagine that failing to hold women accountable is a victimless crime, as if women's sins are just so small and so infrequent and it's just such not big a deal that we're not hurting anybody by not talking about it. That is absolutely not true. We are losing our churches right now because of our failure to hold women accountable. So there it is. That is a quick look at some of the ways that women sin that we don't talk about in church. By no means a comprehensive list. There's far more than we got into as long as this was. Next time, we're going to take a look at why this matters in more depth. So subscribe if you want to see that. Stay weird. And yeah, go watch another video. Or get out of here. Peace.
Peep, peep.
Yes, meow meow.